For this lesson, our learning target is that I can apply laws of logarithms. In order for us to be successful in this lesson, we need to be able to expand log expressions and then condense the log expressions. So first, let's look at the laws of logarithms. For our first law, we have log base b of m times n. So we're multiplying that m and the n. And the way we expand it is that we separate the m and the n, and then we add those logs together. So this m has its own log, and this n has its own log. Notice how the bases are exactly the same. Now, the only rule that we have for bases is that our base has to be greater than 0, but not equal to 1. All right, let's look at our second law. This is for a quotient. We have a log of base b, and for this one, we're dividing our numbers, m divided by n. Again, they both have their own log with the same base. But because we're dividing, we are going to subtract our logs from each other. And if you notice, that division sign looks like a minus sign. So that's a way to remember when you divide that you subtract the logs. And then finally, the last one, we have the log of base b. Notice how when we expand it, it's the same. But for this one, notice how this has an exponent. The exponent ends up becoming the coefficient of the log. So it's like you're moving it to the front. And then it's just your m. All right, let's go ahead and put this to practice. We have log base 2 of n, a times b. Let's look at the one that we multiply. Basically, each one gets its own log with the same base, and then we're going to add them together. Let's go ahead and write down the log, and then we're going to add it to log base 2 of the second one, which is my b. And this is how you expand a log. Go ahead and give it a shot. All right, we're multiplying here also, so we end up with log, notice how your base is 3 now, base 3 of x, which is my first number, plus, because we're multiplying, log base 3 of y. And again, our bases are exactly the same. For this next example, notice how we are dividing. So when we divide, we're going to subtract our logs from each other. And remember, both logs are going to have the same base. So let's start with log base 5 of my numerator minus log base 5 of the denominator. Okay, go ahead and give it a shot. That should be a 2. All right, so because we are dividing, each one gets log. We start with log base 2 of the numerator minus, because we're dividing, log base 2 of the denominator. Okay, let's go ahead and look at this one. Notice how this one has 2 steps. We have an exponent and we have multiplication. So again, we're going to separate them first. So first we've got log base 4 of the first number plus, because we're multiplying, log base 4 of the second number. And right now that second number is x squared. it's not fully expanded because of this exponent. So let's go to the exponent one and notice how all we have to do is move that exponent to the front so that it's the coefficient. So this one then becomes 2. Highlight this in pink. Log base 4 of x. And then the left side stays the same. This left side of the plus sign. Go ahead and try this one. We have two terms in here. We have two numbers, 5 times y to the 5th. So again, we have log base 2 of 5 plus, because we're multiplying, y to the 5th log 2 y to the 5th. And because this one has an exponent, we need to move that exponent to the front. So we end up with 5 log base 2y, and then we'll bring down this log. Move on to this one. Notice how this one has 3 numbers that we're multiplying, which means we're going to have 3 separate logs that are going to be the second one, which is x squared plus log base 2 of the third one, which is y to the third. Now again, this is not fully expanded. This one needs to change because it has an exponent. And this one also has an exponent. So those two numbers need to go in the front. Let's go ahead and rewrite the whole thing. Log base 2 of 6 plus 2 log base 2 of x plus 3 log base 2 of y. Okay, let's try the next one. There'll be times where you have this whole group is to the second power. So I would rewrite it. There are two ways you can do this. You can rewrite it where you get log base 6 of a squared e squared, because you're essentially making both of these squared. So now you have multiplication. We can separate them. Log base 6 a squared plus log base 6 b squared. It's not fully expanded, so we need to expand it further. So 2 log base 6 of a plus 2 log base 6. Another way that you could have approached this problem, log base 6 ab squared. That too, you could have just brought it to the front on the first step. So you have 2 log base 6 of a times b. And then we separate these two. 2 log base 6 of a plus log base 6 of b, which is essentially the same thing as this answer. But you're not distributing that 2, like in this one. All right, go ahead and try this one out. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to say log base 2 of x to the third y to the third. And then we've got 3 log base 2 of x plus 3 log base 2 of y. Or you might have gotten 3 times log base 2 of x plus log base 2 of y. Okay, let's try another one. Log base 6 of xz divided by. Now this one has 2 different steps. Notice how it has the division, and then we're going to use the multiplication one. So first I'm going to separate it by minus log base 6 of 6k. Here's my xy, and here's my 6k. And again, it's not expanded completely because we still have log base 6 of x plus log base 6 of y. Bring down that minus sign, and we do the same thing to the right side. Log base 6 of 6 plus log base 6. Okay, now you try s log base 3x minus log base 3 of t. This one can be expanded further. So log base 3 of 3 plus log base 3 of x minus log base 3 of t. So there's my 3, there's my x, and t is already expanded fully. Okay, we're going to condense now. Because we're adding, we know we're going to be multiplying the 7 and the x together. And because this one has a coefficient, then that means x is going to be to the power of 3. Let's go ahead and write down log base 5. We're going to multiply that 7 times the x, and we know that because we're adding over here. And then that 3 is our exponent. Let's look at the next one. The next one we are subtracting, which means we're going to be dividing these numbers. So let's go ahead and write down our log base 2. We'll put that division sign. My first number stated, or log stated, will be my numerator, and the second one is going to be my denominator. Okay, go ahead and you try this one. All right, now we're going to have a division because it's minus. My first number is our numerator, and my second number is my denominator. And notice how this one has a coefficient, and my coefficient ends up being exponent for my n. All right, go ahead and you try this one now. We are adding for this one, so that means we're going to multiply this number times this number. So we've got log base 3 of 4 times m, and then because the 3 is with this log, then m is going to be the third power. Go ahead and practice on that quizzes assignment that has been posted on Google Classroom.